In this video, I shall be showing you the patterns of the formation of the subjunctive, but before that, I would like to give you a brief explanation of how I understand the concept. There are four tenses that I have covered: the present, imperfect, perfect and pluperfect. There are four subjunctive versions of them to express an element of doubt to a sentence. If I said, "He will arrive on time," then this is a fact. I can say, "I doubt that he will arrive on time," or "It's possible that he will arrive on time," to express doubt. In Spanish, there are numerous verbs and conjunctions that trigger its use. I will place at least one link to some documents I have written on the subject. Querer is a verb which can trigger the subjunctive. If I said, "Quiero que él lo haga," I want him to do it, literally, I want that he does it. It is not a fact that he will do it, so there is a doubt there. Instead of using hace, I use a subjunctive version, haga, to express that doubt. Bear in mind that in that particular sentence there are two subjects, I want and he does. If the subjects are the same, then I can simply say, "Quiero hacerlo," I want to do it. Before I explain the patterns of formation, I wish to point out that later on, I will be talking about forms with ra in it, like diera or diéramos. You can safely assume that you can replace ra with se to make diese or diésemos, because you may encounter that version and it means the same thing, but I always used the more popular ra form. Now, onto the present subjunctive. The key part of formation is swapping a final a for an e or an e for an a. For regular verbs, we take the usted form from the present tense. If the final vowel is an a, swap it for an e. If the final vowel is an e, swap it for an a. If you do this to regular sounding verbs, you will have to change the spelling slightly to maintain certain sounds like busca, busque, but in speech or reading, you do not have to worry about it. This also works for simple stressed e to ie or o to ue verbs, but check first. The word that you have changed covers I, he, she and you. To form the others, you add s, n and mos, which should be familiar to you by now. You can still keep the stress in the same place and swap mos for is as before. The position of the stress in the present indicative is mirrored in this present subjunctive. Let's try conjugating the verb contar, which is one of those verbs that splits a stressed o into ue. The usted form is cuenta from the present tense. I swap a to e, which gives us cuente. This means something like I, he, she or you count while expressing an element of doubt. I simply add s, n and mos for the other forms. I can change mos for is for the vosotros form and keep the stress in the same place. So this gives us cuentes, contemos, contéis and cuenten. I shall do the same with escribir. The usted form of the present tense is escribe. I swap the e for an a this time, which gives us escriba, which covers I, he, she and you. I add the other endings and we have the entire present subjunctive. Escribas, escribamos, escribáis and escriban. There are some verbs with an unusual go sound in the present tense, like oír, poner, etc. One good example is tener, which means to have, used with possessions. I have is tengo. For these types of verbs, I change the go to ga to translate I, he, she or you have. I add the other endings as before, tengas, tengamos, tengáis and tengan. Note that this does not include pagar, to pay, which already has go, pago, which means I pay. It is not unusual to have the go there. The same procedure is employed for verbs which have a C to ZC change, such as conocer, which means I know, as in I know him or I know your brother. I know is conozco. The final O changes to A to make conozca, in the same way that the O of tengo changed to A to give us tenga. Conozca means something like I, he, she or you know. I add the endings exactly as I have done before to give us conozcas, conozcamos, conozcáis, and conozcan. Look out for some irregular verbs like dormir or divertirse. Those two have unusual spellings, for example, me divierta, but nos divertamos. There are other verbs with unusual irregularities to watch out for, but even then they still follow some sort of pattern. One such verb is haber, which has an unusual subjunctive version, haga, which we will use later. Note that the present subjunctive is used for the present time or the future time. You don't use a future subjunctive. In other words, it refers to an event which is simultaneous with or subsequent to the action of the first verb. Forming the imperfect subjunctive is really easy, so I will cover this one quickly. Take the they form of the preterite tense and change the ron to ra. The word you have covers I, he, she and you. Add the endings as before, but this time the stress is always in the same place. Both the imperfect tense and this imperfect subjunctive have the stress fixed in one place. Let's have a look at pagar, to pay. They paid is pagaron from the preterite tense. I changed the ron to ra to get pagara, which could mean something like I, he, she or you were paying, again with an element of doubt. I keep the stress in the same place for the other forms, pagaras, pagaramos, pagarais and pagaran. That mos to is trick still works. Notice that I had to use an accent on pagaramos to keep the stress in the same place as the others. I shall do the same with hacer, to do or to make. They made is hicieron. I can change it to hiciera for the I, he, she and you form. The others are hicieras, hicieramos, hicierais and hicieran. I will cover two subjunctive moods here. The perfect subjunctive is like the perfect tense I have covered before. It is like have or has with a past participle, like I have written a letter, but with some feeling of doubt. The pluperfect subjunctive is like had with a past participle, like I had written a letter, again with some feeling of doubt. You use them like the perfect and pluperfect tenses I have covered in a previous video, with any pronouns that you use in the same place. For I, he, she or you have, the word is haga. As before, just add the endings hayas, hayamos, hayais and hayan. The stress is on the penultimate syllable except for hayais, but again you can swap mos for is again. For I, he, she or you had, the word is hubiera, which can be formed from the word hubieron as previously described. Again I add the endings, but this time I keep the stress in the same place. Hubieras, hubieramos, hubierais and hubieran. Forming all of them may take a little practice, but you can see a lot of patterns there. The trick is knowing when to use them, which is a big subject, and I will not cover everything in this video as I want to try to keep it as short as possible and focus primarily on the patterns. I will give you a few examples to show you some uses. These are sentences which start with a certain verb that triggers the use of the subjunctive. Then we have the word ge, then the next verb has to be in a subjunctive mood. Here is a little table which may help you with these sorts of sentences. If I wanted to say, I want you to help me, I would literally say, I want that you help me. Quiero que. I want that. As I want that person to help me at the same time as me wanting, I use the present subjunctive. Quiero que me ayude. You can think of the verb ayudar, usted ayuda, then change a to e. Ayude. I could have used the familiar form here and appended a further s if I wanted to. To say I wanted you to help me, I can use the imperfect tense, quería que, but now the next verb has to be in the past, so I use the imperfect subjunctive. Quería que me ayudara. If I wanted to say it puzzled me that he had not written, then I start the sentence with me extrañaba que. which is in the imperfect tense. After the word que, I want to say had not, but I have to use the subjunctive version of had, hubiera, giving us me extrañaba que no hubiera escrito, which means it puzzles me that he had not written. As I say, the subject matter is more complicated than portrayed here, but should be sufficient for now. I have not placed other constructions on the table that are possible. For example, if I said es extraño que Ana no haya llamado, it's strange that Anna has not called, I use the present subjunctive version of has, haya, as I am still waiting for a call in the present time. I can change the has part to had and say es extraño que Ana no hubiera llamado, which means it's strange that Anna did not call or had not called, but now I am referring to a past event when Anna did not call, although it was expected of her. That period of time is completed, so I use a had version of the verb. Well, that's it for this video. I can understand why some people may find the subjunctive somewhat difficult, but with practice it will become easier. I find that forming the subjunctive is easier than knowing when to use it, and perhaps you may need to watch the video a few times as I have covered quite a lot of information at once. Take it slowly and practice with certain common verbs and conjunctions that you are likely to use, and then build up your knowledge when you are confident. It is a complex subject matter, but it is not impossible to learn. I have placed some information with this video for your perusal. I hope my documents and this video help you. Thank you for watching.